Good evening and welcome to season 2 of Is Love Enough? And I'm your guest host tonight, Minister Carolyn Cuffey. Now, I know you're wondering, where are the Lightners? Well, they're here. But tonight we're going to flip the tables and we're going to ask the Lightners a few questions. But first, let's talk about WYTV7. It's a nonprofit organization that educates, empowers, and encourages our communities. So do me a favor, go to WYTV7.org and hit the red donate now button and please give. Now, let's talk about Bishop Gregory Lightner and Pastor Karen Lightner. We know from season 1 that they're very, very much in love. Yes, over 25 years of love. Now, we also know that they're very passionate about family and, of course, about God. And is love enough? That question, well, we also have learned from season 1, it depends on the circumstance, on whether or not love is enough. So tonight, 2 hearts, 1 love. Let's meet the Lightners. Bishop Gregory Lightner, Pastor Karen Lightner, please. We already know who you are, but our viewers would love to know, how did you meet? And exactly how long you've been together. We're including not just marriage, but how long overall you've been together. The Lightners.
Well, we met at church, but I had came out of a bad relationship that I had been in for most of my high school and when I moved away, life. And I got to a point where I just wanted that relationship to be over. And once I really ended that relationship, the Lord told me that he was going to show me my wife. And my mom was doing a revival. Our mom was doing a revival in South Carolina. And she kept asking me to come. And when I walked in the house and saw my wife in a t-shirt, jean skirt, hair rolls in her hair, with a scarf on, the Lord said, that's your wife.
You did it.
Hair roll and scarf on. So how did you feel, Pastor Karen? How did you feel?
Well, at first, I wasn't looking to be in a relationship for one, because I've gotten out of one. And the last thing that's on my mind is re-entering another relationship. So at that point, I wasn't even looking for a relationship, wasn't looking to be married, none of that. So when I saw him for the first time, it's like, okay, I saw him, but nothing clicked at all. Because our parents grew up together. That's how she came about to do the revival.
But we never met.
We never met.
Yeah.
So when remember we was in the mall, so our parents were just joking, talking about, wouldn't it be funny if our kids get married?
Yeah, we were in the mall. Yeah.
Yes. So voila, we married 27 years.
So I think our engagement, we talked for a year, and then our engagement was a year. So we've been together for, 28 years? 28 years we've been together. For about 28 and a half years. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's really interesting. I was thinking about the show today and thinking about that is really interesting because both of us was kind of wounded from relationships in different ways. And when the Lord said, this is my wife, I had to kind of put my wounds aside to win her over, you know? I couldn't go in it with my old wounds that I had from the relationship I was in. I had to kind of put those aside to win her.
And the odd thing was when you went back, he called, so mom was like, but Greg on the phone, I'm like, what are you calling me for? So we started talking, and his words were, the Lord told me you was going to be my wife.
Yeah, don't do that, guys. Don't do that. I was
like, what? I said, the Lord ain't telling me that, so I know that ain't right. and he was very adamant about it. Every phone call, he kept saying it. And I'm like, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. I'm not hearing what you heard.
I did not say it every phone call. Man.
Every other phone call.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So the more he called, he was being persistent. And I'm like, you know what? This joker growing on me. And I saw him with a different eye. So when I began
All right now. So that's actually what you're saying now goes into our second question, which is, do you believe in happily ever after? Or is it actually a choice? People can actually choose to live happily ever after. Is that a choice? How do you feel about that?
I believe that our choices in marriage and relationship will ultimately make us in one way or the other. So happily ever after can be a choice and work, because all relationships are going to have good moments and bad moments. All relationships are going to have highs and lows. All relationships are going to have conflict. But it's your choices that you make in those moments that get you to happily ever after. Now, there are some deal breakers. We know that. There are some deal breakers. And I sometimes I think people think that we don't understand that there's deal breakers. There are some deal breakers. If you're being abused, if you're in a situation that you cannot breathe in, cannot live in, then of course there is not going to be any happily ever after. We're not talking about that kind of situation. We're talking about everyday arguments, everyday communication problems, everyday stuff that comes up in every relationship. It's the abundance of choices that you make in those moments that will get you to happily ever after.
Awesome. And Bishop, you just mentioned communication. So let me ask you guys this and start with Pastor Karen. Being transparent, can you tell us a time when communication may have been lacking in your relationship, and what did you do to repair it? After 28 years of being together, we know sometimes there is a break in communication, whether, for whatever reason. Can Pastor Karen start with you? Can you explain that to us and what the situation was like?
Well, I felt in the 27 years we were married, the communication lacked when he worked at the Hilton, because he worked as the executive chef. So pastry chef first. Pastry chef, then executive chef. So when he got promoted to executive chef, he really worked long hours, like 16 hours. So sometimes he would stay over, not come home. And it really put a strain, because me not seeing him, the kids not seeing him, the communication was lacking. He's always tired. So that really put a strain on it. So what I did to see him, I packed all the kids up. I said, okay, today we're going to see Daddy. So I got all the kids in the car. We went on his job, on his lunch break, and we went to see him. And the kids were so happy. We saw him, he saw us. So I had, in my mind, I figured, okay, if I want this to work, I have to do something. So I figure I'll make it work. I'll repair it. I'll go to him. And that's what we did. And on his break, we went walking, took the kids out. And one time we went to the beach. So, I repaired that. I repaired it like that.
And the job was very demanding, because it's a very large resort. And so I was looking at it from opposite kind of perspective. Okay, we got kids. We're trying to build his life. This job is paying all this money. So if I got to be here for 30 hours, 60 hours, if I got to stay here overnight and then get up in the morning, go back to work, this job is paying us, this is the most money we ever had out of the life. Because, those checks were some checks. When I got my first check, I'm like, what?
Bishop and Pastor, listening to what you're saying, you found a compromise and a way to work it out. So this can actually help other couples, because we know that jobs are important and those are things that we do need to survive and keep your family going. But at the same time, you have to make room for one another. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, let me say this by I switched careers. Not switched careers, but went to a different avenue for career. Went to the school system was because I remember I had worked like 16 days straight. I worked 16 days straight. I came home for a Sunday, went to church, and went back to work. And when I came home, the kids were really upset. And one of them was like, I didn't know Daddy lived here. And they was really upset. And that night, when I heard that, looked at her face, I was like, I got to do something different. The money is good, but my kids don't know Daddy lives here. Something has to change. And so I started looking for another job.
Understand. Wow. I'm speechless, Bishop. I'm speechless. Listen, we're really enjoying our conversation with Two Hearts, One Love. Let's meet the Lightners. And we'll be right back after this commercial break. Thank you.
Looking for something to spice things up this Valentine's Day? Well, you can discover how. You can rock the bedroom. Dr. Betsy Greenleaf and WYTV7 presents Rock the Bedroom with Passion and Massage with Lee Jager. This is a women's empowerment seminar held Saturday, February 5th, 2022 at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Go to wytv7.org/events to sign up now.
Welcome back to Is Love Enough? Now, let's get back into the topic. Now, Bishop and Pastor, when I think about people that are watching the show that may have children, parenting is never easy. We go through our ups and downs with our children. Can you share with our audience 3 lessons that you have learned as parents?
Well, I think the first lesson I've learned is being a listener to what the kids have. A lot of times, kids does have opinion. They do want to talk. So you have to make yourself available to them and not always be so quick to judge, but let them say what's on their mind. And I think we actually had to learn. We learned that. So the first time they come like, don't come at me with all that stuff. We ain't got time to hear that. And then you look and they're wounded. So we had to learn, to let them talk because they do have a voice. They do have feelings. So I think that's definitely a lesson I learned.
And I think one of the lessons we learned, the lesson we learned too was when it comes to discipline and restrictions and stuff like that when they were coming up, got to a point where we would go back and go, okay, we know this happened. How do you think mommy and daddy handled the situation? And the reason why we did it that way was to see where they were, right? Because you can discipline a kid and wound them, or you can discipline a kid and they grow from it. And we didn't want to be disciplining and wounding them. We want to be disciplining them and them growing from it. So we had those conversations, and somebody would say, well, Daddy, I think you were too hard on me about blah, blah, blah. And then it was up to us to go back and really have that frank conversation with each other and go, okay, maybe we were too hard. Maybe we could have let up a little bit. Maybe this was too much, And by having those conversations, it made us as parents grow because we have to look at ourselves in the situation too. You can't just blow up. Now, our kids are very open with us because of that. And some things I did not want to hear, but I knew if I reacted in the moment, it was going to shut it down. So that's a lesson that we learned in the moment. And I think the other lesson that we learned that both of us will say is we have one older son that's older than everybody else. And so we reflect with him a lot. Even now, we reflect with him. And he says he was the experiment, right? He says, I was the experiment. But we reflect with him a lot. Like, okay, was this too much? Not doubting our parenting, but wanting to grow. Wanting to make sure we're giving our kids the best experience.
Right.
Because the way we disciplined Mitris, it didn't work for the younger ones. So we had to find out what worked. And so we definitely went back and forth with Mitris. Okay, son, what you think? Mom, I think you were a little harsh. I think you need blah, blah. Try this and try that. And we tried it. And he'd be like, well, it actually worked. They actually were like, dang, well. Yeah, he was our go-to person. I should have known that 10 years ago.
So y'all kind of flipped the tables yourselves and used the oldest child to help figure out how to discipline the younger children.
Exactly. Right. And then the younger ones actually go to the oldest one.
Yeah.
And said, and Mitch was like, I'll tell you how to butter them up type thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I said to myself, you done talk to Mitris.
Yeah. But I will say this too about him. If they messed up and they called him, he would be the main one going, you messed up. You done messed this up. Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
It wasn't like a pet or I'm going to call you. It was, no, you messed this up. You really messed up in this. So I will, I couldn't say it because it's a secret, but I'll because I'm not supposed to know, right? But I'll say there was a situation that came up with a child that he completely handled in a way I would have handled it.
Okay.
And when I found out about it later, I was like, yeah, I would have did the same thing. And I totally left it alone because the situation was over, but he handled it the exact way I would have handled it.
Okay. So your advice for parents more so is keep the lines of communication open, and as we would say, not go overboard when you hear stuff because it actually shuts them down and
exactly. And don't be afraid to learn as a parent. Don't be afraid to have that conversation with your kid. If the kid did something wrong and you discipline them, yes, it was wrong, but don't be afraid to go back to the kid and ask and have that frank conversation with them about the discipline and have them with yourself. So you're evolving. And so we're not damaging them, we're growing them.
Yeah, and another thing we did when we realized, that they said, well, Mom and Dad, I think you're a little harsh. Mm-hmm. We actually went back and apologized. Mm-hmm. And they were like, y'all apologize?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
And you don't see that with a lot of
parents. We've been in the error, so we have.
Right, we're human, so you can't think that's because you're the parent, you always right, and your kid doesn't deserve I'm sorry, or forgive daddy, or forgive mom, we're going to do better next time.
Yeah. Right, I understand. Listen, Bishop and Pastor, when we think about the title of the show, Is Love Enough? I'm going to read something directly from your website. It says the dynamic of the family structure was being contaminated by hurt, unforgiveness, miscommunication, sacrifice, and the list continues and goes on. So how did these things play a part in the development of Is Love Enough?
I said, there's a lot of times people look at us or they see us now and we talk now and they think that it was easy. Something we said the other week on the radio, this came with growth and a lot of looking at each other going, okay, we've got to grow from this. We can't stay in this same place. But if you allow hurt, miscommunication, bad sacrifice to fester, it will kill the family unit. The only thing that makes it stronger is actually dealing with all of those things. And the only reason we are the couple we are is because we realized we had to deal with that stuff. It's not easy to deal with the stuff. It's not pleasant to deal with the stuff, but you gotta deal with it. You gotta actually be honest and go, okay, this is rotten. We gotta fix this.
Right.
And then at the same time, I felt like, because I'm the type, I don't like to talk about too much of what's going on, so I would just shut down. Mm-hmm. And I realized, that didn't work. So I had to open up. I had to communicate, to tell them exactly how I feel about this and that in order to make it work. Because if not, it would just pile up and be just a huge mess. So we've grown in a whole lot of areas,
And that helps develop the title?
Yeah, that helps develop the title, Is Love Enough? Because Is Love Enough is a question that can be debated, right? Love is the stuff that helps you get over the miscommunication, the bad sacrifice, the bad communication. But if you don't ever fix the stuff, then the love eventually won't be enough.
Which comes into the question itself. Is
love enough? Right.
Is love enough? Because it depends, like you said, in a few shows, it depends on the circumstance and what's going on around the question, is love enough? And is it fixable? Is it repairable? And if you're willing to put the work in to do so. So being the founders and the hosts, and listening to the experiences that you're sharing now, we're going to talk about the mission, part of your mission statement that says to ignite change, one conversation at a time. Would you say that it's working?
I would say yes, it's working. And I'd say that every time we have a conversation with somebody, it also helps us grow as well. Changing lives one conversation at a time. is something that is dear to me as a pastor, as a preacher, as a host, because when I'm ministering, it's a conversation, and it should change a life. If it's just one life, then that conversation should change that life. So that's kind of what we do under Is Love Enough too. We're praying, we're hoping, we're believing by sharing our story, by sharing other people's stories, that it's changing marriages, it's changing family structures, it's changing individuals, it's pushing them to know that I can be better, or this situation can change, or I can have a happily ever after, or I can fix my marriage, So that's what we're believing and hoping that we're doing. I think it's working.
Yeah, it is working because
it's working. Okay. Because we know Is Love Enough is surrounded. A lot of people think that this show is just for marriages, but we know this show is for any type of relationship, because all relationships evolve around love. And it's not just married couples. It can be a sibling, it could be a friendship that's gone wrong, or you're trying to fix and repair. There's all different dynamics of relationship that this show can reach. And, we're hoping and praying that the Lightners are doing just that. Now, let's talk about that red cup in the middle, the love cup. Tell us about the love cup.
So this cup is where we will put questions from, and we will pull them out of the cup and then read the question. We don't, when we put the questions in the cup, we don't read them. We don't rehearse what we're saying. It's viewers' questions or questions that have come to us, and we put it directly in the cup. And when we're reading it on air is when we are hearing the question for that time. And we do it that way so we're getting an honest and we're giving an honest opinion and not a rehearsed one. It's easy to read something and give a rehearsed opinion, but I think it's better if we're giving an honest, real opinion about what we're thinking at that moment.
Yes, and some of them questions in that cup be mind blowing. You'd be like,
yes.
You read it like, what?
There's some questions be in that cup. You'd be like, that's the question.
Is that the viewers are not afraid to share their opinions, ask their questions. And so, thinking about Is Love Enough, tell us about the segment that you've added, Let's Ask Mama.
So Let's Ask Mama is like one of my favorite things to do.
Yes.
So mom has been a marriage counselor. She has been in ministry for more years than I've been alive. Yes. So she's been a marriage counselor. She's had a successful marriage. She has run marriage workshops. She's written countless manuals for countless events around the country, stretching from New York to Florida and over. So we do a segment called Let's Ask Mama, where people will write in questions and we read the questions to her, and she gives her wisdom to that question. And it is a very good segment. It is one of my favorite things.
It is, because Mama is so full of wisdom. I mean, wisdom and knowledge. I just love to hear her talk. I love to hear her minister. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's great. I mean, and then she will answer it. Trust me, she will answer that question. She will answer.
Mama is raw. Let's just say Mama's raw.
Yes, she's raw. She's a savage.
Yes, and so when she starts talking and she gets one of those out of the world questions and she answers, people are like, "What? That's Mama." I'm like, "Yes, you just don't know." Yeah, but that's Mama.
Yeah, that's the Mama we know.
Right. Because Mama don't mind talking about anything. Let's just say
anything.
Anything. This is awesome. Listen, let me ask you this question. So, where do you see yourself 5 years from now with GTL Ministries and Is Love Enough?
I'm praying and believing 5 years from now that Is Love Enough will be a syndicated show. And GTL Ministry will continue to grow like it is now. God has opened some tremendous doors for us last year. I know he's going to open some tremendous doors for us this year. And my mission, and this is what I tell people about my mission is not to be famous. My mission is to spread the good news through every avenue we have. Preaching is one avenue. This is another avenue of sharing the good news.
Yeah, I agree. That's what it is. I'm looking to take this thing global. It's not meant for just this area or that area. Mm-hmm. It's meant to be listened to around the world.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Global. Yes.
Awesome. Listen, we're out of time, and I have enjoyed this. Two Hearts, One Love. Let's meet the Lightners. Join us on next week as we dive deeper into Is Love Enough? GTL Ministries, thanks you for joining us on tonight. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Lightner, Bishop and Pastor Lightner. Have a good night, everyone.